perfect timing for my man Zenkus. Hello, my friends. We are live once again. Now we have a special program. You guys see me and my man CJ cut it up many times on the network formerly known as FHL. We got a new, we enter a new era. You guys see me and my man. I like to call it the post General Strike Summit era because I think after that event, we got so much momentum. There's so much things that we want to do. So you're gonna see a lot more programs on this network, and this is one of them. Always fun talking to my man CJ, the Nick and CJ show, the Jay and Nick show. Even though that hurts my ego a little bit.
Right.
But anyway, CJ, what's up, man?
Oh, what's up, Nick, man? Just out here in Cali. It's what is it, 5 here? So a little bit before dinner. But yeah, man, just people have been in comments here and there just since the beginning. You and Nick should do a show. You and Nick should do a show. And with both of us just trying to get it, get everything going, the network. Like you was doing a lot of just shows, just streaming, just to get everything going. I was doing shows and just the same thing. So we finally now feel like we have the time to really focus on this because I think this is gonna be good. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Our main, and this is why me and CJ get along. CJ straight like I don't give a fuck member. The Blackout Network. That's kind of my mindset. Like my thing is, especially now after the General Strike Summit, it's either you stand with my community, you either with community with us, and I honestly learned that a lot from CJ. I'll be honest with you guys. Like if you either stand with my community or get the fuck out of my way. Like we're not gonna have the debate me bro stuff. It's not gonna be about, hey, oh, this is why you should support Democrats. No, we're not doing none of that.
Right, I'm not interested.
So I've been motivated by that. We also have a great guest. We're gonna get him introduced very soon. I want to get a few shout outs. We got Quaker Socialist, amazing friend of the show, in the chat. Big up to Quaker Socialist. Bad Beat Media, you guys know them. Kareem Batesh, Peter Beatty in the comments as well. We got Rome. We got Rome being crazy.
Oh, Rome here? What's up, bro?
Yeah, he said these motherfuckers on black people time.
It was only 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes. And we were just talking, really. We could have had all of that on the show. We were just...
Exactly. So we got a special guest.
Yeah.
With us today. We're going to introduce him now. And the thing on this show, we're going to talk about a lot of great stories that catch our attention. And I think Zenkus, our guest we have today, will be great in a lot of the discussion that we're going to have today. Because I always focus on state violence, the class war, foreign policy. You guys, we're going to report on the Biden administration, what they're doing. And Zenkus is one of the few people out there that actually having their boot on the neck of Biden, right? So welcome to the Revolutionary Blackout Network. My good friend, Anthony Zenkus. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, great. And what an honor to be here on your debut show.
Hell yeah.
Nothing like putting the pressure on me. But I'm excited, and I'm so glad after that summit and the amazing work that you all did on that, and the so many people were reached during the event and then after, to see the network expanding. I can't wait till you all become mainstream, and then
well, mainstream and not corporate. So I guess
that's what I mean.
As long as you're not corporate.
Because seriously, you're going to be giving TYT a run for their money. And I see that happening soon because people want the truth, and you just, when you tell the truth, it's amazing how many people actually listen.
I think even when you disagree, people appreciate you just having the conversation. And this is the reason why I think Nick in particular, you and I promote, no, we need to have conversations. We need to have conversations. We need to have conversations, because even in disagreement, you understand, I can explain your reasoning, but I'll say at the end, I still disagree, but this is what this person is saying. That's understanding. You know what I mean? That's community. You can be in community with people you disagree with on certain topics, not main topics, but certain topics. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think when people look back at history, they kind of just look at the snapshot. Oh, it's a monolithic thing. Look at the civil rights movement. Look at the environmentalist movement. there were arguments. Look at the fact, there were arguments. There were people that disagreed, and that was just through that vibrant discussion that they had emerged something transformational. People look at it today and they're like, oh, there's all this infighting. It's like, no, we're not robots. We're talking. We don't all agree on everything. And that was I guess, one of the things that made me so disappointed with some of the detractors who kind of, were downplaying the amazing work that you were doing for the summit. My thing is like, you should be asking to go on it and talking, because there are some overlapping goals. Right. Let's have it out. Let's talk about it. So
I'll let if he wants to chime in on that. I'll let him chime in on that if he wants to. I don't have any.
Yeah. So as a citizen journalist, this is why we have conversations, because the amount of people who reached out to us. At least I can speak for myself. That reached out to me. They're like, "Y'all, I learned about the Black Panther mutual system because of the General Strike Summit." I had people that they used to say, "I used to only follow politics through the lens of the electoral politics, right? Like with TYT, the David Doe's, and the Mike Figueredo's. Like, this is the kind of stuff they program people to think. Like, oh, if electoral politics doesn't work, what do we have, right? There's so many people that don't even know there are many other options outside of electoral politics, and that's what the General Strike Summit was talking about, right?
Right.
And what you refer to when you talk about people who had criticism of the General Strike Summit, I saw someone gave me attention, like, yo, David Doe and this other popular streamer was like telling lies about the summit. I'm like, that's good. We got people talking. And what does that say when you have people that are trying to lie about a group of broke, activist Black people are putting together? What does that say about you? So is it infighting, or is it the liberals protecting their social hierarchy? That's really what it is. So when they see a group of young Black people doing stuff without the permission of the Justice Democrat group, without the permission of Bernie Sanders, without the permission of AOC, without the permission of wherever your hierarchy is, that's when they get upset. And one last thing I want to say, and then we can move on to the story or give your final thoughts, is one thing that these people will say when they was criticizing, I was letting them hang themselves. Like, I was like, this way. Remember, CJ, they was like, you guys gonna have a General Strike Summit with no union organizers? Remember when people were saying that? No union organizers at your event. We have union organizer leaders at our event that was called for a general strike, right? So you notice that they had to lie about the event and the reason why they're doing that, because they got to convince themselves why it's okay they're not doing it.
Right.
That's really what it's about. So my thing is, when Hassan was doing his thing, David Doe was like, "Oh, I can't believe you guys are focusing on Hassan or whatever," ignoring he didn't tell his audience that Hassan called us out first, and secondly, though I had the audacity of just asking for a conversation. Do you guys see how deeply unserious the U.S. left is? There's so many people that have these who have these disagreements with us, and I'm like, all right, come, let's talk on my show, your show. It don't really matter, and people don't even want to do that.
That's because, Nick, it's a coping mechanism, or this is my theory on it. People hate on this type of hate on political strategizing, organizing. It's a coping mechanism to cope with the fact that they feel bad that they're not doing something as good or as impactful. So it's a way of, oh yeah, I'm not a part of that because look how bad that is. That's because this is this, and this. You get what I'm saying? It's a way of saying that's why I'm not a part of it, not because I'm weak and spineless and don't really want to do anything and I just want a virtue signal. That's not the reason. It's because of all these other bad things. You get what I'm saying? Like, if our worst critique from this event is our name, like, I'll take that.
That's all they had too. So they're like, get the name, change the name.
Yeah, like, I'll take that.
Hey guys, by the way, how many subscribers we lost because we changed it? Right. There were people that literally thought, there were people that really thought that if we changed the name, we're gonna lose subscribers or something. Like, we were tricking people somehow. We affiliate with Fred Hampton somehow. Right. And I want to give Zenkus, I want to get your thoughts on this, because one thing that also ties into what you're saying, CJ, is the same reason they lash out at people for holding Medicare for all marches, because it exposes them for not doing it. The same way they get mad at people for not holding General Strike Summit because it exposes them for not doing it. It exposes them for not platforming union leaders. So they're making David Doe and a lot of these people, they make reaction videos to Ben Shapiro, right? They make Fox News videos. Like, they do a bunch of deeply unserious shit for clicks. So and they're like, oh, we got to justify why we're not doing that. Oh, this is a waste of time. Having a conversation is such a bad thing, right? So that's and this same mechanism is why they lash out for us for refusing to vote for the Democratic Party. And I would love to get Zenkus' thoughts on this. Because my claim is, and we're going to report on some stories here very soon, and I have, throughout the course of my citizen journalist career, right, reporting on why people who vote for Joe Biden think that he's the lesser of two evils, why they should feel dumb as hell. And we're going to show you guys why. So, when we outline all the evil crimes of the Democratic Party and how Joe Biden, just like Donald Trump, they lash out at us instead of the people in power. Why do they do that? It's the same mechanism because they got to justify why they voted for him. So if they lash out to people who claiming that he's a war criminal, he's racist, that make him feel better about voting for him.
Right. Exactly.
I want to get Zenkus to see what he thinks about this. And once again, I got some stories for you guys. CJ, be right back. I got some stories for you guys, and you guys see exactly what I'm talking about once I go through the next few stories. But Zenkus, you got anything you want to add to what we were saying here?
Yeah, I mean, a whole bunch. First thing, as far as the criticism of the summit, like it should never be criticized. People want to have a conversation, right? So I agree with you there. And the other thing is they would cherry pick a few names out that they know are like instantly controversial on Twitter, like, oh, Jimmy Dore is going to speak, therefore, blah, blah, blah. And my thing is, first of all, like, again, as I said, like, not everybody agrees on everything. I don't agree with, and we don't have to get into the whole thing. Like, I don't agree with Jimmy Dore's take on the Rittenhouse trial. But I really like what he says about what's wrong with the Democratic Party. So can I hold those two things? Because one of the like, you know, abilities to be a thinker, a critical thinker, is to say, I like this, I challenge this, but I'm not going to dismiss everything just because someone holds a view where I looked and I said, that's not what I saw. You know, we need to have those conversations. And who wins by us not having conversations, you know? And that that kind of moves toward the whole idea of the Democratic Party. You know, what I encounter on a daily basis, and I know you do as well, which is I get this, if I say anything critical about the Democrats or particular Democrats like Pelosi, Biden, Schumer, or even the squad, what I get is the assumption by people that don't know who I am that I must be a Trump supporter, you know, and then I have my fun with them. And, you know, sometimes I feel bad and go like, listen, I have been a registered Democrat my entire life. I used to work with the local Democratic committee. I've knocked on doors. I've made phone calls. I've worked on local, state, and national campaigns. I worked on 4 presidential campaigns. My work was all voluntary, by the way, right? I did that. I've stood next to presidential candidates at photo op events. I did all of it because I wanted a better world. And then I came to the conclusion, this doesn't work. And I understand not everybody's there yet. But me criticizing, or us criticizing the Democrats from the left, they can't. I tweeted about this a few weeks ago. They can't allow that criticism, so it frightens them, and it takes their mask off. So in order to mute the criticism from the left, they automatically say, "Hey, you're a Trump supporter," right? And I just want to spend a second on this because, well, a minute.
No, I won't break it down. Let's
people. There's a guy. Okay, there's a guy. Someone I follow that I really have a lot of respect for is Peter Dow. So in 2016, Peter Dow blocked me. We would fight, you know, on Twitter regularly. And Peter Dow had a partner that he was working with, a guy named Tom Watson. So in 2016, Tom Watson and Peter Dow founded this kind of this group they called Hillary Men. And the idea was like, it was men that embraced a woman running for president in the person of Hillary Clinton. Hey, which is fine if that's what you believe in. But they were brutal online. That was their thing. Destroying any leftist voices that said, hey, listen, Bernie Sanders has better plans and he's got more integrity and he's not connected to Wall Street. So let's look at Bernie Sanders. They shut it down. Peter Dow had an awakening, came out and supported Sanders in the last primary, distanced himself from the Democratic Party. He worked for Hillary Clinton. He worked for John Kerry, right? He did all this. He was there. And he said, listen, I realized it doesn't work. They never change. I'm not speaking for him, but it's kind of like a paraphrase. Tom Watson kept drinking the Kool-Aid. I knew Tom Watson. I worked with him at a nonprofit, on a nonprofit project some years ago. So we were friends on Facebook and had met in person a bunch of times. He seemed like a nice guy. And I started arguing on his, I don't talk about politics on Facebook anymore. It's a useless endeavor. Like, I will post pictures of puppies and kittens.
It is useless.
Happy Merry Christmas, whatever, Happy Hanukkah now.
Years ago.
But that's, I stopped, right? But I remember going on Tom Watson's page and saying, listen, Tom, I know you support Hillary, but here's the thing. Medicare for all is important. Here's why. And his gaslighting was almost instant. He goes, after I said Medicare for all and why we should have it, he said, wow, you are really hard right-wing, Zenkus. And I thought, I see what he's doing. He knows exactly.
Wait, who said this?
Tom Watson. Look him up. Tom Watson.
Is that the Democratic operative dude?
Yeah. And he had some controversy in 2016 for an anti-Semitic comment about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders had a big rally in New York City, might have been Union Square, and he said, "Oh, it's like the young Nazis in the brown shirts." Like, so
that's like Chris Matthews when he was like, they gonna round us up at Central Park. Did he say something like that during the debate?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, sorry, Chris, you don't have a show anymore. But so when I looked at that, and this is use that word that you always use. This is a deeply unserious guy. He knows exactly what he's doing, and this is what they do today, which is if you espouse a position to the left of the right-wing Democrat, the Democratic Party is a right-wing party.
Right.
And we'll talk about that in a second too. I think it's important. If you espouse anything to the left of it, they say you're right-wing. And it's that horseshoe theory, the idea of like, well, if Trump hates, the MAGA supporters hate Biden, of course they do, and you hate Biden, you're actually with them. And that's insane, right? It's not a serious viewpoint, but it accomplishes, for the uncritical thinkers, the ability for people to dismiss any discussion of anything to the left of what the Democratic Party stands for. And what are we talking about? This isn't just like policy disputes. This is literally the fact that nearly 70,000 American people die in the United States, each year because we don't have Medicare for all. And you have a president who stared 80 Barkan, a man living with I was going to say Lou Gehrig's disease, but ALS, I'm sorry. Living with ALS, advocating for Medicare for all, stared him in the eyes on a Zoom and said, I'm sorry, I'm against it. So they can't have this discussion. Student debt forgiveness, all the things, and some of them that they ran on, we're not even allowed to talk about now. First it was push him left. Now it's shut the fuck up. And people's lives are hanging in the balance. When it comes to climate change, we don't have the luxury of time to debate this any further. The scientists were done debating years ago, decades ago.
Seems like we got 20 years though.
And that's, and so, we could move toward the squad. But so the point is, the Democratic Party does not allow debate anywhere to the left of what their position is, which is basically a right-wing corporate position. Right.
It's to kind of talk about what you're saying. So in order for them not to be seen as simply being virtue signaling, they have to cancel out the real left's voice.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if people hear us and they start to say, wait, you're saying Obamacare, but those people way down to the left of you, they're saying, you know, nationalized healthcare, they're saying Medicare for all. So you're really not the left party. You get what I'm saying? Once the real left is discovered by mainstream or by corporate media, or they even acknowledge it, it's like they're not even acknowledge our existence. They're not, you know what I mean? As long as they don't acknowledge it, then the point ends with the Democratic Party. That's the left. So that's very key.
Exactly what they did
in understanding the Overton window in America, and how it's key to keeping it where it is for people to believe there's not two right parties.
And
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and if I could just add one quick thing, the Democrats know that there are a substantial amount of people who, 70% of Americans, want things like Medicare for all.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they run on a platform which kind of pays lip service to it. Then they get in power. They propose a bill which contains a watered down version of that, not what they ran on. And then once the bill gets proposed, they start wrangling within each, you know, in their own party back and forth. And then they take all those things out. They did that with Build Back Better, right? And
why do you think, let me just ask both of you this, because it has to do with what you're just saying. Why do you think they wrangle in the public on that particular thing? Because they don't wrangle on everything. Only are certain things they want us to believe they are wrangling about.
Nick?
Anthony, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, like, they already have the decision made ahead of time that none of these things are going to be in the bill.
Exactly.
They want it to look good. There used to be, oh God, what was his name? I can't remember his name. It was a shortstop. I'm a Mets fan. You know, it is what it is. But there was a shortstop for the New York Mets who was actually really, really good. But he would overplay it. Like, he would have a routine play and like spin around to make it look like it was harder. And it was kind of fun to watch. But that's what they do. They try to look like, oh God, this was so hard to get here. We tried so hard. But you knew in the beginning, because I predicted it, you guys did too, no way was it going to be 3.5 trillion. It definitely wasn't going to be 6 trillion. So we knew that they didn't.
I literally didn't cover it. Like, CJ, remember when we talked about people people were literally asking me, like, people were like, why are you not talking about the infrastructure bill? Why are you not talking about the bill? I'm like, bro, we don't even know what it's gonna be. Like, they was like, you know, you're gonna have paid maternity leave in this bill. Why are you not talking? Like, people literally would hit me up like, why aren't you giving Biden props?
No, you're not.
I'm like, bro, are you serious? You
So
guys are literally to give props to politicians for his dumb. Sorry, Thinkers, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Here's an interesting thing they did. On September 20th, Joseph Stiglitz, who is an economist, like Nobel Prize winning economist, Nobel laureate from Columbia University, a school that I teach at, he and 16 other Nobel Prize winners came out and supported the original Build Back Better bill with an open letter saying, this could be transformational. We really need to pass it. We are like legitimate thinkers, because he's way smarter than I am, right? And that was in September. That's before they gutted the bill and took all the serious things out. For instance, I'll tell you this, 12 weeks paid family leave is not what most other countries have. It's nowhere nearly as good as what most other countries have, but it's actually decent and will change people's lives. I supported it, right? That's out of the bill. Now they're maybe talking like 4 weeks, but it'll probably end up being 2 if it stays in. So what happened was these 17 Nobel Prize winners write an open letter supporting the bill. Then the Democrats, the disaster known as the Democratic Party, takes all that stuff out. Now the bill is less than half what it would have been had it stayed the same at 3.5 trillion. And you still have the pathological liar known as Joe Biden walking around saying 17. I mean, he's a hard time saying it because the man can't put sentences together. That's a whole other issue. 17 Nobel Prize winners support this bill. No, liar, they don't. They supported your old bill. They supported the bill that was not what we needed in the moment, but was actually had some pretty good things in it, that bill's gone. You threw it in the trash. So what the Democrats do is they take the progressive language, water it down, make the bill, then do the little performance as if they're going back and forth, take it out, and then brag that 3 months ago this person supported it. Well, that's not the bill anymore. So that is unserious. And here's the problem. We're talking about it on, your show. They're not talking about it on CNN. And they know. So why don't they do it? Why is there no criticism? If it was Trump doing that, it would be, oh, look, he gutted the bill.
They literally cut taxes for the rich in the Build Back Better bill. So if you guys want to understand how the ratchet effect works, and once again, we got another story showing you guys how Biden ramped up the immigration problem. So I also want to go back a little bit to what something that Zenkus has said, because Zenkus earlier, the combination of both of you guys said so many good things. I went like, I got time on this. Regarding the horseshoe theory, you mentioned this before, and the reason why I use the term deeply unserious, because I only had a platform for like a year and a half. Like I'm still new to this. I'll just be sitting here, I'll sit here and watch people like explain political concepts. I'll see people talk about politics, like we got to support the Republican Party, Democrat Party. Oh, if you don't support the Democrat Party, that lead to horseshoe theory. And I'm like, bro, why is everyone unserious? So I used my tablet and I started fucking making videos. That's how we got started. Cause I gotta correct the record on some of this shit. And the horseshoe theory is one of them. So Zenkus, you explained earlier the horseshoe theory, and I've seen it in action all the time. You see people like Sam Cedar, Majority Report, TYT. They actually back it up and they give it credibility among people who call themselves progressive, right?
Tell me what that is, or explain to me more. Yeah,
theory is the idea that if you go too far left, you end up on the right. So if you're to the left of the Democratic Party, if you are extreme left, if you are like a communist, you eventually be so extreme, your politics is just like the right. So CJ, I can tell even just hearing about this, you can see how unserious this is, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to just physically trying to understand how that is.
Yeah, so
how do you go from believing in no wars, believing in theory, that just doesn't.
It's so unserious. This is their theory, and I want to see some chats, guys. I want to see some comments. I want to see what you guys think about the horseshoe theory. So what they say is, oh, if you don't support the Democratic Party, you are allowing the Republican Party to have free reign on our government. You might as well be a right winger. That is their logic. Oh, if you don't help us defeat Trump, you might as well be a Trumper. Now, if you pay attention to policy, this does not make sense at face value. This does not make sense. So Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, they're expanding ICE. They're expanding the police budgets. They cut the taxes on the rich. And like Zenkus said, the Democratic Party is a right-wing party. So once you understand that, the concept of a horseshoe theory does not make sense. So how does not supporting the Democratic Party because you don't want to support Joe Biden, who does the same thing as Donald Trump, make you closer to Trump when Joe Biden is doing the same thing as Donald Trump?
Right.
So that doesn't make sense. But this is thing. This concept is repeated as gospel among the TYT crowd.
Wait. So you're not saying TYT. You're saying people who watch TYT.
The progressives.
Like they believe. I don't know why I haven't heard this. They believe if you go too far left,
yes,
that somehow that. Do you have an explanation for that, Anthony? Do you know why they think that, or have you heard of this?
He was like, and I'm gonna get Zenkus in here. He said Marxist-Leninism is just another form of authoritarianism. Like, bro, you vote for Joe Biden. What the fuck? For one, you see, they literally believe that. They literally believe if you're a Marxist-Leninist, they literally believe if you're a communist, you might as well be a right winger, even though they support the military and the military-industrial complex that destroy millions of lives. But Zenkus, what's your thoughts? Because I still got a lot to unpack from what you said earlier.
Well, I mean,
you just getting started.
Why? Here's what happens. You've got the policymakers. There's all the layers. You've got the donors who run the world, right? Mm-hmm. These are the owners, the ruling class. And it's those that we know, the Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk, but then there's the others that we don't know their names, but they also the ones that run the banks. I mean, some of us know like Jamie Dimon, Lloyd Blankfein, who used to be with Goldman Sachs. all those people, and then the names we don't know. They make the decisions on like what we are going to be doing for climate and what we're not going to be doing. They make the decisions about like, do we go to war or not, right? You know, and so they make those decisions. The policymakers work closely with them, and that's the top layer, and that's like the Bidens and the Harrises and the Pelosi's and the Schumers and all those people. And then you've got their foot soldiers, and that's like TYT, right? Who started out being critical of power, but shifted over time and then, you know, showed who they were. They know exactly what they're doing. All of them know. And, you know, and that's why Cenk Uygur can get a $25 million check, you know, to spout this nonsense and tell us, no. But then there are the people who follow them and watch them.
Ryan Grimm, I would say this: Ryan Grimm get checks from 2 billionaires. He went on Franco analysis and decried mutual aid. I watched that. He was having a debate with Franco, and he was asking Franco, like, what other alternative other than electoral politics? And Franco, like, let's build community, let's have mutual aid. He was like, mutual aid, this is charity.
Right. And I don't agree with this. Ryan Grimm is actually a pretty good investigative journalist. And he's done some things which have tweaked power. But ultimately, if I were able to have a debate with him on that, it would be very...
Franco did a good job, but I was watching like, oh my, I want to get that. He was like, he is the chief bureau chief, and once again, I'm not even decrying the work he did. Like, right. You said. I'm just talking about his role in this game.
I agree, right? But they know what they're doing.
And he was like, oh, mutual aid, that's just charity. Guys, CJ, how many times have we explained the difference between mutual aid and charity?
I think what both of you mentioned, what both of you are saying here, in particular about Ryan Grimm, is what I was speaking to before. I forget what we were, in another episode. Is that we have to understand that people in our community, or people who have overlapping views or policies, who should be theoretically in our community based on those policies, are also viewing the same propaganda, also reading the same propaganda that a lot of people are reading. So what I'm basically saying, not to say that Ryan Grimm is believing this propaganda, what I'm saying is, I guess it speaks to who is included in the community, like people who still have a belief in the corporatization of our system. And I think I don't think going out on a limb and say that Ryan Grimm believes that, and I think that's what his comment, or his flippant comment about mutual aid was saying, is that he believes in the status quo of keeping our system, corporate. Instead of a mutual aid system, is that? But he believes in some of these other things that align themselves with who we call leftists. As a person like that, part of the community, how do you deal with the person who doesn't agree with you? Like, all of these things, we don't understand how to do because we're so conditioned to tribalism. So we don't understand that, hey, somebody who agrees with me 70% of the time is actually in my community. Somebody who agrees with me, whatever your threshold is, like, we don't have that concept. It's a concept of this one issue is going to make us not be together. Now we just lost somebody who we could be together on 70% of other things. So for me, I have a lot of criticism of Ryan Grimm. But again, I love how what you said, Anthony, and then Nick is saying yes, but because I wanted to use that to point out this, is that we need to be able to talk to people that don't agree with us on some things, but they agree with us on a lot of things. We need to be able to do that, because just think if we didn't talk to KKK members. You know how many KKK members have been turned just simply by interacting with people who they just simply thought was a different way. They grew up thinking black people were one way. They interacted with them and they say, hey, that's not what I see with this person. So that could change hearts. So that's another reason why I believe that you talk, because you give the other person education on what you believe a good perspective or the perspective is. So that's why, to me, conversations are always important. I'll pass it back.
Yeah, so I give Ryan Graham credit for one even having that conversation with Franco, and secondly, he still follows me for some reason. Like we follow each other, and he seen me bash him plenty of times, and we interacted a few times. I snapped at him, we snapped back, whatever. So at least he's wanted to have that engagement. Like I think there was a new memo that was sent, like especially around the general strike summit, where like a lot of blue checks and Liberia accounts were told, do not engage with SocialistMMA no matter what. Like I think that's like a new memo. Like people will talk about our group, and I tweet about like people talking about us, but then I would like respond when they talking about us, and they were like, they won't say anything. They would say, oh, this group did this, but like, why? I'm right here, guys. So it's like now that changed. But anyway, the thing that changed, I'll give you right in here, Zenk, is because I'll give Ryan Graham a lot of credit, but what really changed and what really made me like stick my fangs on him was when he because I learned his true role. He was attacking friend of the show, Savage Joy, who was organizing the Medicare for All March, and he did it in a dishonest way. He attacked Force to Vote. He attacked the General Strike Summit. He was retweeting like false attacks on it, like the G-Hive false narratives against us. So it's like, okay, your role is to attack activists and defend the Democratic Party. So once I view him in that lens, I'm like, all right, everything started to make sense. Like he would do good work on stuff, but as long as it doesn't get in the way of his initial objective of keeping the left in line, whipping them and sheep-herding them to the Democratic Party. So he can talk about Democratic Party corruption as long as at the end of the day, his message is get back to the party, help improve it, and anyone who have any other options outside of that, we should demonize and we should call them right-wingers, because he also went after third-party people. So once again, I'm willing to acknowledge he did good work, and he could have good opinions on some economic ideas, but he is class loyal first and foremost. And we got to acknowledge that. But Zenkus, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and a lot of them are. You know, they're you said it very clearly. They're class loyal, and they're, you know, people know where their bread is buttered. And I don't want to dwell too much on Ryan Grimm. Like I said, when I said he's a good investigative journalist, he did some good work on a bunch of things.
Yeah.
Tara Reid's story was one of them, where he was one of the few that actually dug into the story and found out, the things that she was saying were true, blah blah blah. And the whole point is that he at least put that out there. But the point is, none of that changed or shifted power too much. It just criticized one person, and that was Joe Biden. We can still have an oligarchy without Joe Biden, and that's going to be obvious when he's not around, when he's not president anymore, whenever that is. So, but ultimately, it's interesting to see white liberals talk about these issues that matter to all people, and to try to silence or not engage with black radicals. That to me is a very heartbreaking and angering thing to watch, right? And so I always check myself, like, if I come out and say, here's what I think about this particular issue, I want to hear from black radicals what people say, like, what am I on target? Does this resonate with you? Because no matter what, I can never take off my white skin, right? I marched in Black Lives Matter rallies in New York City, and I got pushed around by police too. But I always knew that I could walk off and onto the sidewalk and I'd be fine, because I have my white skin, right? So I have to remember that from that perch, I might not be evolved enough on an issue. And I'm going to check with people. I'm going to draw my own conclusions, but I'm going to check it with people. I want pushback if I need pushback. I want to get there, right? White liberals don't. They want to preserve the system as is, and you have to start asking why. And the reason is they're very comfortable. Mm-hmm. They're doing okay, right? So I know we're going to, shift on to at some point things like mass incarceration, but mass incarceration decimated black families across this country and continues to do so. That mass incarceration what I call the psychopathic white supremacist mass incarceration, or I call it the psychopathic white supremacist crime bill of 1994, because that's what it is. Authored by Joe Biden, signed by Bill Clinton, has destroyed Black lives and continues to do so. For us to say, hey, maybe don't nominate the guy who brags about it to this day and still really doesn't apologize for it, the pushback comes. And why the pushback? Because white people are very comfortable, even if they are so-called liberal, very comfortable with Black families being destroyed. Now, they wouldn't do it directly themselves. And if somebody comes out and says it out loud, like Donald Trump, who says things about Black and brown people, and like, you know, the Mexicans are sending rapists and murderers, like crazy crap that this man like spouted out of his mouth, they don't like that, because now we see the system's spokesperson is saying horrible things, and that makes us uncomfortable. We want to keep the system, and we're going to run the guy that actually, listen, Joe Biden did more harm to the Black community, and I'm saying this as a white person, push back if I'm wrong, than Donald Trump ever did, because Donald Trump was nowhere near power when that crime bill was passed. And the racist Bill Clinton, who golfed at an all-white, no blacks allowed country club up until he ran for office in 1992, and then had to resign from the country club because it would look bad. That's the person you're calling your first Black president? He's a segregationist prick, in addition to a whole bunch of other things Bill Clinton is, and Hillary Clinton is.
So many things that you said it perfectly. And you summed up a lot of what I've been saying. And one of the reasons why me and CJ wanted to create a Black network, and I'll let CJ explain as well, because you mentioned earlier, once again, there's so many things you said earlier, I'm still unpacking. You mentioned earlier, like whenever you criticize Joe Biden and say stuff that is factually true, which I've been saying, like no one done more damage to the Black community than Joe Biden in modern American history. So when you say stuff like that, they were like, "Oh, you're a Trump or you're a racist," right? So this is the reason why you don't see liberals want to have this conversation with Black leftists. This is why you see people like Hassan, David Dole, Mike Figueroa. These people avoid conversation with us at all costs, because I will ask them to explain. Like what other politician is more anti-Black than Joe Biden? So they just cut us out of that entire conversation as a whole, because they know they are deeply unserious on this topic. CJ, any thoughts?
Yeah, the reason it's like, I feel I'm going to be inserting a bunch of things and meshing them together. So I feel like the Black community as a whole are leftists. Because if you go by issue, Medicare for all, they're for that. Cutting the war budget, they're for that. You know what I mean? Increasing the minimum wage, they're for that. Like all these things. But when you have a left movement where literally every single face is white, that doesn't make Black people feel that's the place they're wanted. And that's how I felt, you know, previously when I used to be a liberal. Like it seemed to be overwhelmingly white. So, but I mean, do you kind of get the point that I'm making, or
I hear what you're saying, CJ. But what I want to do, cause I want to show you guys something. Cause now I want to pivot to discussing some stories. Cause I think this is exactly what backs up what we're talking about. Okay. When we call out people who support the white supremacist, capitalist, imperialist Democratic Party, right? So one thing you said earlier, and I'm gonna start this story with this. You mentioned how you had disagreement with Jimmy Dore on Rittenhouse, but you still you're gonna straight up cancel him. You still wanted to have dialogue. You wanted to listen to them, and this is the idea that we promote at this show. This is why I talk to many people. I canvass in South Carolina with Bernie Sanders, talking to many different people. So that's my job as a citizen journalist. What kills me is the double standards, though. I don't mind people who are principled on this issue. Now, there are people who say, and I actually kind of sympathize with them, especially in the Black community, Latinos, Indigenous people, where they'll say, "Oh, it's not our job to talk to racists. It's the job of the white community to do that, to talk to racists and win them over." So my job is, as a citizen journalist, like, okay, we don't have to do, but I'd rather be the one who engage. So that's why we talked to Jimmy. That's why we talked to many people, even we had disagreements. So if you were straight up like, all right, I don't want to talk to these people. Like, I know people like this. I know people like, I want to talk to anyone who had disagreements with me, but they also don't vote Democrat. You see what I'm saying? So the double standards will get me. So even if you have a strong disagreement with Dora on this issue of Cal Rittenhouse, okay, what you are not going to do is tell us that we should cancel someone when you vote for Joe Biden. So why is it okay?
Exactly.
You guys see where I'm coming from? Like, if you're on one side or another, I'm actually okay with that. If you're pro-canceling, I think canceling just living in the consequence of your actions. I don't think it's a big deal. Honestly, straight up, I really don't think it is. So if you're a pro-cancel, I barely see consistency with this shit, because I see people, once again, the shit libs, the shit progressives, they say, oh my God, red brown lines. You want to work with Jimmy Dore, all these white people who don't support the Democrat Party, but you working with the Democrats who are continuing to prison slave labor. Watch, I'm gonna get to the story and I'm gonna get you guys talk, because that's my preface to this, right? So why are we smeared as red brown lions for wanting to like work with people we have small disagreements with for the Barry Mall community, but Ro Khanna being friends with Bill Kristol is not? How is that not the blue brown?
So, and I don't want to.
Real quick, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want?
No,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, first of all, just to throw out the thing about Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore's not brown shirt. Like, Jimmy Dore had people on his show that
to the left of the Democrat Party, like people who say he's the right, that's stupid.
That he didn't agree with on race, but he said there were some agreements on other things. And so here's the thing: if you want nothing to change, don't ever try to win anybody over. Right. But I have like, it's so funny. My immediate family, like, nobody votes Republican, but my extended family, and I love them, there's a bunch of them that are like Trump voters. So we try to not get too into it. But if I have a conversation with my cousin who voted for Trump and say things like, don't you think everybody should have a doctor? They say, yes, I agree with you. I see the things you posted, and I do agree with you on that, right? So, and these are not really deeply political people. They don't like we do. But I want to have that discussion, because guess what? I want to bring people over to the side of justice, regardless of where they start. And, and so Jimmy Dore trying to have conversations with people does not mean he endorses everything they say.
He platformed a black radical leftist.
Yes.
People was like, why don't you platform black radical leftists? And then
nobody else
platform me, and then they're like, oh, how dare you go on? Like, people
Jimmy
like,
Dore
how dare you go on Jimmy Dore?
Jimmy Dore doesn't come out, is not racist and doesn't support racist policies, but he criticizes the Democrats. And like I said, like, if he has me on the show, I'd be happy to say, here's why I disagree with you on Rittenhouse, because I happened to have the unfortunate circumstance of tuning onto that live stream right before the shots were fired in Kenosha, because I was watching the live streams every night of the protests because I couldn't be there in person. So I wanted to have solidarity and watch with my own eyes, because the media, I know them, they lie to me, not you, but the other media, the fake media. And so I watched it, and then all of a sudden you heard the shots. People were screaming. People were thinking it was an active shooter situation and were running down the street. It was mayhem. That was my take on it, which is why I thought I understood why they had, tried to get the gun away and all that stuff. But that's okay if you see it differently. I'm just saying I can hold that view, have that discussion, and still be appreciative that a man with that reaches millions of people is willing to stand up and call out the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party. And by the way, to TYT and all those people who say, like, Dore's this and that, okay, fine. If you don't want his voice to be so popular and powerful, why aren't you criticizing the Democrats? You're free to do that. People would listen to you if you did. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. So that's bullshit. I call bullshit on it. And here's why they don't want to do it. because they're happy with things being exactly the way they are, right? And anybody that has to say, listen, hold on, in the middle of a pandemic, a Democrat-run government refused to give everybody health care. A Democrat-run government refused to give us what used to be, but is no longer a living wage, of $15 an hour. The minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. A Democrat-run government refused to extend the eviction moratorium. They did not extend it. For those that think, oh yeah, the CDC did, the Supreme Court, which I know that, look, the Supreme Court is batshit crazy, but
Yes.
they exist. If they're telling you, hey, if the CDC extends the moratorium, we're going to shoot it down, Congress needs to pass a law, and Democrats run the fucking Congress. You understand, like, why am I enraged? Because people are living on the streets and white liberals are fine. They don't give a shit. And if I'm wrong, and they do, show me. If you want to cancel me, if you want to cancel Dore, if you want to cancel the Revolutionary Blackout Network, and get mad at them because they used the name of a man who would hate everything the Democratic Party stands for. Fred Hampton is a hero, one of the few heroes that I can look at.
These same people will smear Fred Hampton. Like, once again, I tell you, the Black Panther Party was Marxist-Leninists.
Yes.
And like Vosh and these people, they hate Marxist-Leninists. So they would smear Fred Hampton as a tanky if he was alive today. So it's hilarious how they think they can talk to me.
Not only would they would be okay with his murder by the FBI,
100%.
and they wouldn't cover it. So let's talk about that level of comfort. They'd be fine with it.
And let me speak to that point. This is something I've been beginning to just think more and more on, just how our society is so conditioned to be fine with people, our neighbors going through trauma, and we just go, well, it's not happening to us. It's, well, they obviously did something to put themselves in that position. All the rationalizations we say to ourselves not to help our fellow neighbor. Just think about that. Like, the nation started with murdering the genocide of indigenous people, and then enslaving people at the same time saying we're the freest country. Just think of that, like, two parallel worlds, and it still exists today. It's like poor people who don't have money, they have no representation in government. They have no TV show about them. They have nobody reporting news about what's happening in their lives. No show. Nobody's talking anything about them. It's like, it's no existence. It's like they don't exist. And this is what I'm speaking to. It's like, how can liberals just go along like that? That's what I don't understand. But it speaks to the larger, capitalism view, which is rooted in white supremacy, about, individualism, well, if they're poor, if they have all of this stuff, it must be them, because you never blame the system of capitalism. Never. It's never capitalism. It's always something else. You get what I'm saying? So that, to me, is something I've been thinking about in the last probably several weeks. Just how are people just moving along? Well, as if people aren't suffering.
It's a disconnect. Is it? Can I just chime in?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I want to get you in. I
thought you said I disconnected, so I was wondering if my mic was off. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to get your thoughts on that, and I'm gonna present the story I was about to. But it was a good conversation. So
yeah,
I'll give you the last thoughts on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
That disconnect is valuable, and it works. It works for them, right? And so, if I can completely dismiss the pain of somebody else, then I can feel better about it. I used to encounter this. I did a lot of training. So, for those that don't know, my expertise is in trauma, right? And so I've always been somewhat of an activist, but my expertise is in trauma. I worked in the fields of sexual violence, domestic violence, child abuse, human trafficking, right, for years. And I would do these trainings on child sexual abuse and talk about like the numbers of kids that are molested. It's horrible. Like, and trigger alert, I apologize to anybody who didn't expect that conversation, but just throwing it out there subject wise is that I would do trainings for adults on how to keep kids safe. And I would always have somebody at these trainings, well-meaning, who would like raise their hand and say, well, what about the kids that are making it up? And, you know, so the evidence shows that doesn't happen much at all. But I understand why you'd want to think it does. Because it is a lot easier to live in the world where kids make up being abused than it is to live in the world where the abuse actually happens as much as it does, because then we have to do something. And that gave me a window into understanding all the stuff I'm seeing now. If we don't admit the problem, then we don't have to do anything. And psychologically, it is overwhelming to think like, how do we solve racism in the United States? And oh no, there's white supremacy and privilege. Well, I don't really feel like I have privilege. Therefore, let's not talk about that. But, you know, we'll have more black people run for office. In Virginia next time, it'll definitely be a black person, maybe a black woman, you know, and then no, that doesn't solve the problem. You're not willing to deal with it because it causes you to do something. Everything is an equation, right? So for women to have more power in the United States, men must give up power, or it needs to be taken from them, right? Frederick Douglass very keenly observed this. Power concedes nothing without a demand, right? So for there to be justice for black people, white people need to be either willing, or it needs to be taken from them to give something up. And so you notice that we can talk about running more black candidates, but when's the last time a politician in power with white skin, or even black skin lately, ever talked about reparations? And all reparations are is paying people back for the money you stole from them, right? So that's not controversial.
Real quick, these same white liberals pretend they are on the side of critical race theory. You see this?
Mm-hmm.
You see how they pretend they're the champions of critical race theory? Guys, you are not a champion of critical race theory if you don't support reparations. Sorry, go ahead, Zenkus.
No. Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely not. And here's my line. Like, there's got to be lines in the sand. I have a whole bunch of them. But here's my like main one that I've been thinking about lately. Any party that does not use their platform to come out and push hard for reparations, which again is paying people back for the money you stole from them, does not deserve to be in office and should be driven from office. The Democrats refuse to talk about reparations. They have, in my opinion, abandoned the black community. They continue mass incarceration. Their racist president refuses to even decriminalize, let alone legalize marijuana, which would do a lot, and release everybody from prison. Do you know, like, one last thing and then go to your story. Presidential pardons always happen like at the end of a term. There's no reason for that. Presidential pardon can happen anytime. Tomorrow, Joe Biden could pardon every person who is in prison right now for a nonviolent drug crime, especially marijuana. He could do it tomorrow and refuses to because he is a racist prick. And I'll say that. Go ahead. Share this widely. Oh, no. And then my detractors will send it to my dean. And then I'll have a conversation with my dean and I'll be like, yeah, Joe Biden's a racist prick. And in addition, people are suffering.
They try to call your manager, Zenkus, because you told the truth.
Oh, my God. You have no idea. Yeah.
Doesn't it, CJ?
They call the manager. They're Karens.
They call the manager. They call our manager, too. We was like, fuck it. We done changed your name. We don't got no fucking manager. Go ahead, Zenkus.
No, they called my manager because I supported Tara Reid. Because I had a different opinion on whether or not a woman was sexually assaulted by a politician they liked. And so normal people, if they're not sure they believe somebody's story, will just be like, either they'll say nothing or they'll say, I don't know if I believe it. And that's legitimate. That's fine. Tara Reid even says it. She says, I understand if people don't believe me. But to come out and say, oh, you're a liar and a grifter, and anybody who supports you should be fired from their jobs. Now I know you're not only unserious, you're on the side of the rapist. So what say you to that? And so getting back to the reparations argument, the Democratic Party refuses to talk about it. They elected a racist, white supremacist, segregationist. And Kamala Harris had I won't say decency, because I don't know what's decent about it, but she had the ability. She used her platform briefly in the debates and called out Joe Biden for his segregationist views, but then it turned out she basically agrees with them anyway. So it's not shouldn't be controversial to say this. Like, this guy has done more damage to the black community than Donald Trump has, and the fact that things aren't changing is causing serious trauma and pain in the lives of families and communities right now, to this day. And my last thing about this is that any white person who knows this and refuses to speak up is part of the genocide that is right now happening against black Americans. So you have to choose a side.
This is why I love having because people get mad at me for saying things. I don't know where that echo's from.
Yeah, but that's crazy. It shouldn't have to take me, but I understand my role. Because I can tell white people, you're hypocrites, and your privilege is killing people. So what are you going to do about it?
All right, sorry guys. I think I was trying to fix the. All right, I think it's gone. Okay, so I think this is a good transition, because what you were saying have been like a thesis of what me and CJ have been talking about for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And you broke down throughout the first hour of the show, which I'm glad you did, all the ways of the Democratic Party and the liberal class that support them are irredeemable right wingers. And it's funny that despite everything that you laid out, these people still believe that they are to the left of people like Jimmy Dore. Like, these people these people think they're to the left of me, because like they're like, oh, you don't support Democrats, you're a secret right winger. Like, bro, you support the police state, you support the prison industrial complex. And just like Zenkus said, if you are not calling out Joe Biden, which that's been the main thing on our show, wrote an entire op-ed calling out the crimes of Joe Biden. And now check this out. I want to get right into the story, because I think I preach-faced the other one too long. So here we go. Who else in independent media been covering the state violence issues more than us? Because once again, I pride myself on covering state violence. Other people, they do reaction videos to Fox News, Tucker Carlson, the same thing, get clicks. But this has not changed, guys. The same thing that people used to care about? The thing they used to say was no matter how horrible Joe Biden is, we must support Joe Biden to end this right now. The kids in cages. So the Haitian ICE detention centers, the conditions are worse than they ever been. And I covered on my show, you guys know they've been on hunger strike from the beginning of this year. You had multiple hunger strikes, and you had ICE under the leadership of Joe Biden, who was caught force-feeding, which is a war crime. It's a medical procedure, a forced medical procedure. So that's considered a war crime. This is Joe Biden's America. I want to read this to you. I want to read this part to you guys, because I want you guys to really understand what Biden America look like. So I'm gonna read this little quick passage here. On November 9th, press release from the immigrants' rights group described a litany of bad conditions, including poor food, mistreatment, and inadequate medical care. One detainee told Love that he had a hernia and was given ibuprofen to treat it. Others complained that water gave A1 rashes, so poison water. Most suffer from anxiety, depression, and weight loss. They fill out handwritten surveys, just skimming through here. And most of them say the food they're not fed properly. The food not fully cooked. They don't get enough food. And they talking about like some person got diarrhea. Like, this is just the personal accounts of what's going on here. And because these conditions have been so dire, especially under COVID-19, a lot of people are going through hunger strikes, trying to protest this. They were force-feeding people. And this story here, this is Joe Biden. This is Joe Biden's America. You guys voted for Kamala Harris, who is an enthusiast of prison slave labor. And you guys thought you was actually fighting white supremacy? So, guys, this is just one lawsuit. You have a private prison company who was using slave labor, and I'm gonna skim through this quickly. But they was paying these people $1 an hour, and they was promising them more food. They were promising them more food for their slave labor. Which, what does that tell you? That tell you here it is right here. Some detainees have led to promise of extra food. Why would you need to get someone extra food? I'm asking you guys. Because they're not feeding them properly.
Because they're not feeding them.
Why would, like, if someone would offer me a job and was like, yeah, I'm gonna underpay you, but I'll give you more food though. I'm like, no, I'm good. I eat 3 meals a day. I'm good. But why would they need to give them more food? Because they're not feeding them. I covered multiple stories of mass sexual harassment that is unchecked in ICE detention centers. Mass slavery, force feeding. This is Biden's eyes that he can get done. He can get rid of all this in one stroke of a pen. Why doesn't he? So if you support this party, you can't call anyone a right winger. Anybody. I don't care what their takes on anything. Because the United States Congress is the most violent institution in the world. Period. The United States Congress is the most violent institution in human history. And you guys supported the powers that be that enables that. The most evil of evil. Anthony Blinken was complicit in the deaths of millions of people overseas. Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken, and they have a special commission whose job was to sell the Iraq war. So how can you call anyone a right winger if you support, if you advocate, or if you defend this party? Zenkus, I'll start with you first. I'm going to get CJ thoughts on the story. You got anything you want to add?
Oh, me? Oh, you said, I thought you said Zink. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go after you.
Oh, you want to go after me? Okay. So, so what I wanted to say was, to me, this speaks to propaganda in our corporate media. Is because literally nothing has changed. And in the case of the ICE detention centers, for example, nothing has changed but the coverage of what's happening. The same stuff is happening in these ICE detention centers. This report right here, Nick, this is what, a couple of days old. Like this stuff is still happening.
The date on the date on this, yeah, it was this the lawsuit where they lost slavery. Look, they lost that lawsuit to defend their story. That was last month. And the story that I just read earlier, talking about the Haitian migrants conditions that they ran about after interviewing them, that's literally 4 days ago.
Right. So I'm saying, like, it's like this also speaks to the tribalism, where your team is doing the same thing, but when the other team is doing it, you want to go, look. But when your team is doing it, you want to go, oh, I don't see nothing. And it's the same thing, because I just don't believe people who support the Democratic Party don't see all of this. You might not see all of this. I'm sorry. You may not see all of this, but you're hearing this, especially people on Twitter. You're hearing this. You're seeing the receipts. You're seeing the articles that leftists are posting, debunking all of what you're saying about Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. Like, in order for you to buy in, you have to literally go, this evidence right here, I'm disqualifying. This evidence right here, I'm disqualifying. This evidence right here, I'm disqualifying. Like, at what point, you get what I'm saying? Like, if you're looking at the Democratic Party and you're looking at these things individually, you're looking at, their decision to keep this Trump era thing in place. You're looking at, this is why it's explained. You have explanation for everything. You get what I'm saying? Like, you're having to always explain, well, this is the reason why Joe Biden did this time. This is what makes Joe Biden's ICE camp different. You know what I mean? What are they calling it? ICE facilities or something like this, migrant facilities. This is what makes it different, AOC, whatever explanation she gives. This is what makes, Joe Biden's military budget, this is why it's going to be different. Even though it's more money, this is why when it's under the Democratic control, why it's different. When it's the same wars, everything is the same. And that is my point, and I guess I'm speaking to the duopoly is to sum this up and then pass it back, is that no matter who is in power in the government, no matter who's in power, the same companies running it want the same plan. They don't go, Pfizer doesn't go, oh, the plan I had for my business is different when a Democrat's in power than a Republican. It's the same plan. It's the same imperialist plan. They don't change it because the Democrat's in office. That is the point of the duopoly and why we need to break it. I know I went off on a tangent, but back to you.
That's well said. I'm gonna get Zenkus in here. I want to share this though. Once again, things have not changed, guys, and we people think we are being radical. Like people like Kyle Kalinske was said we were being he attacked us today like the grassroots left for being like whiny losers or whatever. Oh, I apologize if we are whiny. Yeah, I'll show you guys that very soon. Yeah, I apologize if we are whiny losers because we are complaining about ICE detention centers. So this is still going on. Joe Biden, and this is let me get a shout out to this Twitter guy. Okay, I found his source. Stands grounded. Don't know much about him. That's who I found this tweet from. Joe Biden is still using these cages. ICE is still practicing inhumane, xenophobic immigration policies, waging war against refugees and children. It's still free. It's still free our people behind these cages. We haven't forget about them. Abolish ICE. Yeah, we have not forgetting about them. Guess who have? The progressive and the liberal class. Yeah.
The only thing.
Go ahead, Zenkus.
I'm sorry. The only thing, I can't even look at this. It's disgusting. The only thing that's changed in regards to the discussion on immigration is that AOC has stopped crying about it. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whose candidacy I amplified years ago, a couple of years ago now, when you ran, and since then, you know, things you were said in this outside and on the floor of the House, I amplified. You're not only an unserious person, you're an enemy, because you have now silenced yourself in regards to criticism of crimes against humanity. And you know better. So I don't know what your motivation is, AOC. Is it your career? Did you like being on the cover of Rolling Stone? I can imagine it's fun. Is it the money? You make $174,000 a year plus perks? Is it the amount of money you know you're going to make when you at some point leave office? But something must be different, because now your silence on the crimes against humanity is deafening. And we hear it and we see it. People are not losing faith with the squad. We're realizing who you really are. If I see images of kids in cages, when I know they don't have to be there, it's not like one of these, well, what else are we going to do with them? That's what MAGA said when we called them out about these crimes. Well, there's all these people coming over the border. It's because of the stupid Democrats and their open border policies, which don't exist. I turned on Fox News oh my God, to watch how they covered a certain issue. I think it was the Rittenhouse trial. But there happened to be a story on about immigration, and they were talking about Joe Biden and his open border policy. And it was like, oh my God, your viewers on Fox really think Biden is doing that?
they call Biden, they pretend Biden support open border, and they call him a Marxist.
Yes.
These people are, he's a market capitalist at the highest order.
If only the stuff that Fox News said about the Democrats were true, we would vote for them. Like, they called them all kind of like the leftist agenda and how AOC's leftist buddies are really running the party, and Marxist Leninists, all kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah, and so she can wear that dress to the Met Gala that says "Tax the Rich." And
that's so ironic.
Meanwhile, let me say this real quick. Hopefully I don't throw your thought off, because I'm gonna scare some audience members right now. Because I saw a video floating where Bernie Sanders passionately argued against open borders, and this is one of the issues so many progressives run against, because they're scared they're gonna hurt Democrats. And I told you guys, I don't give a fuck. whether I hurt or help Democratic Party. My thing is, once again, I give everyone all my issues come from a class analysis, pro-worker perspective, a Marxist pro-worker perspective. So unlike the other cowards, progressives, I am not going to run away from this. I am going to make the argument for open borders. And now the people who, and once again, we don't have to stay on this so long because you brought it up. So, because Glenn was, someone mentioned Glenn tweet about today, and I replied to him because I'm like, I would love to hear the counter argument. So, guys, what is borders? What is borders? Who stops? Who is stopped by moving from borders? Workers. What is the cost of moving to a country? So, if you're American and you want to live in Russia, if you want to live in England, if you want to live in Eastern Europe, what is the barrier for you? The barrier is money, right? If
Meanwhile,
go ahead, Zenkus.
I was going to say these corporations operate without borders.
Exactly.
You got ahead of me. You got ahead of me.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's perfect because that was the argument I'm building up, and I'm curious to hear the counter argument. I was like, Glenn Greenwald, are you gonna respond to what I said? Because I can show you guys why I tweet under him. I was like, yo, so if borders only is affected by money, that means we have class-based borders. So if you're rich, you can just ship your company overseas. Why can't the workers follow you? And this will bring argument. Sorry, because I want to finish with one last thought. Because Bernie's argument was like, oh, this will hurt the workers. There's nothing stopping you from having an open border policy and strong protectionist policies for workers. So if a company ship worker overseas, what's stopping you from having policies that you cannot make that person lose their job? So if you want to ship a job overseas, you should be able to keep their wages. In fact, give them a bonus, pay for their travel, and pay for their residency. That's a pro-worker policy. So my thing is, if you're against this, I would love to have this discussion. But Zenkus, I want to see your thoughts because I still want to add on to this.
You just brought something up about Bernie Sanders, who I have mixed feelings about, because I am grateful that he brought so many things up during his two campaigns, and he has fought on the right side.
I'm gonna try to find the video. But go ahead, Zenkus.
But I've never liked his stance on borders, and I never liked his stance on guns. That's just me. Now, I know some leftists are very pro-Second Amendment. I'm not, but it's okay. Like, I just don't agree with him on those things, but I don't cancel him. I still listen to certain things. Here's why the fear of an open border argument is not real. Because nowhere in this discussion is it allowing for an understanding of what capitalism is and what the illusion of scarcity is. So we base capitalism on the illusion that there's not enough. Mm-hmm. There's not enough resources. There's not enough cash. There's not enough jobs. So if we operate under that myth, which is not true, then of course more people coming in and entering the workforce is a quote unquote threat to American workers. But the question that needs to be asked then is, well, why doesn't your economy have the capacity for full employment of anybody who lives here? And this is where mass incarceration comes in. Why do Democrats fight to keep black bodies warehoused in prison? They do that, and they do fight to keep that. Kamala Harris being one of the most pro-prison slave labor people around right now, and of course Joe Biden. One of the things is, imagine if the 2+ million people in jail entered the workforce tomorrow. You just released them. What would happen? Well, our economy wouldn't support it. And so why doesn't it support it? Because we don't have an economy based on worker, individual, and family needs and community needs. We have an economy based on profit for a few people. And in order to preserve that crazy system, which benefits fewer people, we have to have this illusion of scarcity. And they'll say things like, well, there's not enough. There's not enough work. That's not true. That's not true. We could retrofit buildings to make them more like climate friendly. We could rebuild neighborhoods. There's so much work to be done.
Zenkus, you know what else they say? They said, oh, you can't advocate for open border policy because if you have immigrants over here, that would drive the wages of the workers down. And I am waiting for someone to explain this. These billionaires are making record profits. What's stopping them from just paying the fucking worker? That migrant has nothing to do with it.
Yes.
Well, listen,
nothing to do with it. But Zenkus, sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead, brother.
No, I'm sorry to cut you off. There's leftists. No. Let's not even call them leftists. There's pro-Democrat people out there on social media who'll defend Elon Musk's, ability to be where he's worth $300 billion now. I had a tweet the other day and I said, you could literally take 99% of his wealth away and the man would still have $3 billion. And he could still fly into space.
But the immigrants though, Zenkus.
Oh, I know. So
makes sense.
Listen, so let's boil this down. All right, and if I could throw a piece out, so like, what's my background?
Hey, Zenkus, do you want to watch the Bernie video first?
Yeah,
throw the Bernie. We're on the topic. I want to cut this as a segment because I want to have this conversation because a lot of people. I gave this a lot of thought, especially during my radicalization. So many people are scared to take this stance. But if you actually read like leftist theory and Marxism, I don't understand how this is controversial. And remember, guys, I always said Bernie was a compromise. Bernie was the moderate position. And this is one reason why. In this segment, we're going to debunk a lot of what he says here. And my thing is, I'm open to have the conversation. Because if you're a leftist, if you're anti-capitalist, I'm very curious on why you defend the class-based borders. I'm very curious. Here's Bernie Sanders' explanation. Sorry, let me restart this because I don't think I set the audio on. 1 second. So this is the Social Democrat. Like they are to my left. Bernie's to the left of the Democrat Party. I think that's not controversial to say. But Social Democrats are significantly to the right of true anti-capitalists, anti-imperialists like us. Because Bernie not really anti-imperialist. Even Dr. Cornel West said he has a weak take and critique of imperialism. He said that on our show. So this is what Bernie says regarding open border and our disagreement, and we can have a discussion on why we disagree. So let's go ahead and watch this real quick.
Something that is in what you said about being a democratic socialist is a more international view. But I think if you take global poverty that seriously, it leads you to conclusions that in the US are considered out of political bounds. Things like sharply raising the level of immigration we permit, even up to a level of open borders. Sharply opening.
This is a brilliant question, by the way. I don't know who this guy is.
Ezra Klein.
This is a brilliant question. Like,
yeah, he used to come on the Hill all the time, Ezra Klein.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know that guy, but this is how many times have you seen Bernie Sanders on any sort of corporate news or news he will go on that is asking him a question to his left? That never happens.
No.
What reparations? They do that as a got you. They try to hurt Bernie with that. Yeah. Well, he deserved to get hit for that, right? But that's like the only example. But this is a great question. You never seen one asked. But now listen to Bernie Sanders' response here. I'll go back a few seconds here. This is very telling. And this is why, once again, he was the moderate candidate to us. And the people who say that the progressives support open borders, they're deeply dishonest people. Just period. Check this out.
Sharply raising the level of immigration we permit, even up to a level of open borders. About sharply
open borders. That's a Koch brothers proposal. The idea, of course. I mean, that's a right-wing proposal, which says essentially there is no United States.
But it would make a lot of the global poor richer, wouldn't it?
And it'd make everybody in America poor. Then you're doing away with the concept of the
guys. I know some of you guys like Bernie Sanders, but you guys realize he's using right-wing talking points right here, right?
Yeah.
And what he said regarding the Koch brothers thing, that is not 100% untrue, because libertarians, extreme right-wing libertarians, they used to support open borders. So what he's saying is one of the things that is half true, but it's also deeply misleading. Because once again, I gave you guys the Marxist anti-capitalist perspective on borders. Yeah. You see how Bernie Sanders allowed the Overton window to only go so far? He covers the far right libertarian belief on open borders, but he's not giving the anti-capitalist class analysis of this. That borders essentially it's pretty much class borders. That's what we have. Any thoughts, CJ and Zenkus, before I finish this clip?
Well, my only thing was, do you? This is just a question for both of you. Do you think Bernie doesn't know this class analysis?
Hey, yeah, let's finish this. CJ, if you don't mind, let's finish this video.
Yes.
So we hear his whole argument, and then we can answer that question. So let's hear Bernie Sanders. Once again, Bernie is a social democrat. He's not a democratic socialist. That was good marketing, but he's not. He's a social democrat. And this is the social democrat critique of open borders. And once again, I just want to have an open conversation about it. Let's go.
Right-wing proposal, which says essentially there is no United States.
But it would make a lot of the global poor richer, wouldn't it?
And it'd make everybody in America poor. Then you're doing away with the concept of a nation state. And I don't think there's any country in the world which believes in that. If you believe in a nation state, or in a country called the United States, or UK, or Denmark, or any other country,
I don't care for it, to be honest.
you have an obligation, in my view, to do everything we can to help poor people. What right-wing people in this country would love is an open border policy. Bring in all kinds of people who work for $2 or $3 an hour. That would be great for them. I don't believe in that. I think we have to rate.
Well, what Bernie said is actually true there, because despite the rhetoric, like Trump and Republicans, they do love cheap migrant slave labor, right? So that's true. I give Bernie that.
Well, I don't. Well, it depends on what we're talking about, open borders, because then you're saying that open borders but keeping people illegal. Yeah. So I thought the whole concept with open borders means they are legal here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I apologize, guys. I let finish the video because I actually want to dive into that. That's my bad. Let's finish this.
Work for $2 or $3 an hour. That would be great for them. I don't believe in that. I think we have to raise wages in this country. I think we have to do everything that we can to create the millions of jobs. You know what youth unemployment in the United States of America today? If you're white, a white kid, high school graduate, 33%, a Hispanic, 36%, African American, 51%. You think we should open the borders and bring in a lot of low-wage workers? What do you?
Guys, that's the right-wing talking point.
I know.
We should try to get jobs for those kids. So I think from a moral responsibility, we've got to work with the rest of the industrialized world to address the problems of international poverty. But you don't do that by making people in this country even.
You see how he threw in morality to make a distinction between Americans okay to live a better life, but not non-Americans. That is just disgusting to me.
Yeah, that's so many.
Intertwine that as some sort of moral position. That's disgusting.
It is,
because they deserve the same things that Americans deserve. To me, I guess is all one and the same. Because I was going to say this is more of a racist point to me, or maybe it's not racist because it's not a specific race, but it is xenophobic. Xenophobic is more a xenophobic response to me than capitalism. But then again, capitalism is based on racism, so it could be one and the same. But to me, this is more about xenophobia.
Hey, CJ, you see how they try to divide us?
Yeah.
Like that's shocking, because he was like, well, if you bring in migrants from other countries in Central America, Latin America, what about the black people? What about black workers? That's what right-wingers do. That's literally what Candace Owens said. Candace Owens said we can't support borders because they hurt black workers. And we just heard Bernie Sanders agree with Candace Owens. Guys.
Do they not know our minimum wage is already $7.25? Like, this is keeping them out. We're keeping them out, according to you. We don't have open borders, and our minimum wage is $7.25. Has it working? Is it working?
Well, let's be clear that Bernie Sanders' stance on open borders is the Democratic Party stance and the Republican Party stance. It's like the accepted government thing. So I don't want to paint him as worse than them, and he's much better on them than on other issues. But I've always had a problem with this. And why is that? Because in my view, the whole point of it is he doesn't allow for the understanding or the discussion of what capitalism is and what it does. And Nick, you put it really well when you said, these borders are borders to prevent the movement of free people, of workers. They're not. These borders don't contain the wealthy and the owner class. They go where they want. They locate their company in Canada or Ireland or the Cayman Islands just to avoid taxes. They do those inversions. They do those things all the time. They don't have to travel. It's all digital. And so let's ask a question. Does human society that exists on this planet have the capacity to give everybody that wants it and needs it work? Does it have the capacity to feed and house everyone? Does it have the capacity to make sure everybody has clean, safe water to drink and safe shelter? And the answer is, of course we do. Of course we have that capacity. And any discussion not based on the initial premise of the fact that our Earth has and can provide everything that we humans need to live in harmony with other life forms on this planet without destroying the planet, any argument that doesn't start with that premise is a false argument. So the belief that, well, there's not enough work and there's not enough jobs, the question we must ask is then, well, why aren't there? I just pointed out that there's tons of work to do. Are you telling me there's not work to do? We don't need to repair roads and bridges. And by the way, the infrastructure, some good things will happen, but ultimately, will they repair every road and bridge that needs it? No. Are they repairing schools that are falling apart? No. But like, we could employ people to do those things. Of course, why not open the border? And then the other question is, why are people leaving the countries they grew up in and loved? You know, cultural dislocation is real. If you were born in Guatemala or Nicaragua or these places, and that's your culture, that's what you know, there would have to be a serious reason for you to want to leave a place that you grew up in and that you're familiar with. I know these roads, I know these mountains, I know these streams, I know these people. Why would I leave it? Because our capitalism has destabilized that region of the world. So, you know, and Bernie Sanders has been a mixed bag on imperialism and the military budget. Sometimes he's on the right side and sometimes he's voting party line. But the bottom line is our imperial capitalism destabilizes regions. You don't think that Mexico and the countries of Central America have the natural resources to provide for every person? Of course they do. Of course they do. Those are rich lands there, you know, and why are people leaving? Why are they in fear? Because of the illusion of scarcity. So you got a few families in El Salvador, in Nicaragua before the revolution. Thank God for the Sandinistas and for what they did to liberate those people from the horrible cesspool it was before. Of like corruption and capitalism. So what happens is our imperialism, our corporate imperialism, destabilizes these regions. People leave because they don't have enough resource. They don't have access to food or water or safety. There's violence because when you destabilize a society economically, violence always happens. So they're fleeing it. And then they come here, and Bernie Sanders and the rest of the Democrats and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris goes down there and goes, do not come. Do not come to the United States, she says, with no critical conversation of how are your policies forcing people to make the decision to leave their homelands? Why would they do that?
Now you understand borders. Now you understand gated communities.
It's what it is.
Borders and gated communities is essentially the same thing. We have accumulated this wealth. We don't want the peasants to interfere and interact or come into our premises. Let's gate them off. This is the same. It's the same sort of. It's the same sort of concept. And what I want to say, because you kept saying destabilizing, and what kept ringing in my head is, it's funny how the only countries that are being destabilized are countries that are not white. That is white supremacy screaming that we are about white supremacy. You understand? It's about painting the picture that the only sane people who got this whole life thing together are white people because we are superior. That is the whole basis. And you don't have to say it. You just see it. You get what I'm saying? You don't have to say black people are inferior, because if you say crime is not connected to poverty, what other explanation there is of the crime rate in the black community, unless you're saying it's about the black person? You get what I'm saying? Like,
and here's where the Democrats are exactly what they say they're not, right? So the Democratic Party has as their tagline, "We are pro-science." Well, no, they're not, because science is very clear. The main factor that influences whether a society or a community is violent is one thing, and that is the level of inequality that exists in that community, that city, or that society. Societies that are more equal have less violent crime. This is not even controversial among violence researchers, and I'm talking from the bastions of liberal thought and knowledge like Harvard University, which has done the research and shows this. So a more unequal society is going to be a more violent society. This is just, we've got enough evidence to show that you can look at it community by community, city by city, and even country by country. The more grossly unequal a society is, the more violence there is, the more crime there is. And when you destabilize communities with things like lack of employment opportunities, lack of resources, violence is predictable. But we never talk about the denial of resources to people as violence itself. But it is. Capitalism is violence. So I work as an instructor in schools of social work, where we are training people to give aid and work with those victims of this inequity, right? And one of the things I challenge my students to do is to look critically about, well, where does this stuff come from? A downstream issue is the stuff that we see, drug abuse, violence, deaths from despair. What's the upstream issue that causes it? And yes, we do need to give aid and comfort to those who are suffering downstream. But we also need to look at the root causes. If we don't look at root causes, nothing ever gets accomplished, because it's going to keep happening. And the metaphor for the upstream downstream is that, like, imagine you have a community that lives downstream on this, on the banks of this big river, and people keep getting sick because that's their main water source. And they decide to put a new water filtration system in, and it helps a little, but still some people are getting sick and dying. Upstream is the factory that's dumping the toxic chemicals into the water. You can filter that water all you want, but if you never go upstream and talk about what's up with that factory dumping the toxic chemicals in the water, you're never going to solve the problem. And so Democrats are willing to say, Republicans say, we have no sympathy with those people downstream. If they really wanted clean water, they'd find it. Democrats say, it's not fair. It's not their fault. The water is not clean. Let's try to clean it up a little. And radical leftists say, close the fucking factory.
Now, there's so many good things to break down there. We appreciate everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the stream, we got international leftists tomorrow. But one thing I want to say to kind of round this conversation out, because you were talking about, and this is a point that CJ and Zenkus were making regarding how if you actually improve people's conditions, you can reduce violence, you can reduce crime. And the reason why abolitionists and the reason why people don't believe that is rooted in an inherently racist beliefs that even if you take care of this black or brown community, they still won't change, right? And as a Marxist, as an anti-capitalist, I inherently reject that, because I believe people's actions are reflective of their material conditions. Now, one thing I'm gonna say, ask yourself this: why do you think capitalism needs this giant police state? So one of the first things Democrats did was increase the police state in the middle of a pandemic where people are going homeless, people are losing health care, the quality of life is decreasing in this country. So instead of actually taking care of that, they instead decided to fund the police more. Why do you think that is? Do you think that's an accident?
Nope.
Do you think these people who are mentored by Henry Kissinger, for example, are doing this out for no reason? No. These people read Marx too in the
Yeah,
college.
they
These people
know people are gonna be fed up. They know people are not gonna take this. This is unsustainable. They have been militarizing the police. They know what's gonna happen. They know people are gonna wake up and be this just cannot happen. So to your point, yes, they see it. They know.
Yeah, so that's in order to keep the global population, the global poor under control, you need strict fascist neoliberal police, you need giant military imperialism, and you need strict borders. Because when you have a country like the United States that destabilizes a country like Haiti, you need borders to protect the bourgeoisie class that destroyed their country from the people they destroyed, right? So people wonder why I got this position open border. That's an anti-imperialist position. So you guys are against the United States destroying Haiti, but you will shut out the Haitian immigrants that flood over here because of our imperialist policy. Like, don't you people see the contradictions? How can you be anti-imperialist but not support open borders? It doesn't make sense to me, and I'm waiting for someone to explain it. But Zenkus, before we wrap up, I know you had a quick 2-minute video you want to share. Let's end it on that. I'm curious. You can share, right? I want to see that.
Yeah, if you give me the ability to share, I can share.
You're not able.
It should say at the bottom already.
I don't know if I put up share video slides, share screen. Share screen is easiest with 2 monitors. Maybe we can't. Let me try.
Is a video on YouTube or something?
Yeah. Can you see my?
You can put a link in the private chat and then
I can put it up or Nick can put it up.
All right, I'll do that now. But how do I go back to where we were? I'm not sharing now, right?
Oh, so there's two tabs. One is private chat, one is comment. Is that what you're looking at?
No, I just want to make sure that I didn't mess up the screen, and so I'll just put the link in.
Nothing's on the screen. You're good.
It's based on the subject. It's one of my favorites. It's based on the subject of gated communities, and it's called non-gated community. And it's funny and it's cool. I'm putting it in the chat right now for you, the private chat, to share. But so I do want to talk about that piece real quickly.
Yeah, we can wrap up on that. I think that'd be a powerful way to end.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I show it when I've done workshops, but the one thing I want to say is this. So what does it mean to be human? What science tells us is to be human means to live in community. We evolved over 97% actually of our evolution as a collective species. We only survived because we were able to cooperate with each other. And we only survived because we shared everything. That was what being human meant. For 97+% of the 300,000 years that we've been a species. Only recently, since the dawn of agriculture 10,000 years ago, and then the dawn of mercantilism and then capitalism, really in the past few hundred years, has there been a concept that it's okay for there to be winners and losers. That was unheard of when we evolved. Because if one person lost, everybody lost. And both parties have bought into, the Republicans very overtly, but Democrats as well, the belief that there's not enough. That's a lie. There's more than enough resources for everybody on this planet. And the belief that we have to make tough choices, and we don't. Everybody can have a place to live. Everybody can have food to eat. Everybody can have the ability to have leisure time, to have solitude and time with loved ones. And also the last lie is that we are safer when we block others out, whether it's through the borders or in our
communities.
Martin Luther King, Dr. King said this, we go farther faster when we go together. And he wasn't just talking about activism. He was talking about society, so draw the circle bigger and let everybody in. And that's the message of the video too.
All right. So I'm gonna get into the video. Oh wait, sorry. I gotta pull it back up.
Good to put up that sound again.
Yeah,
I always forget. I always forget to do that.
Yeah, so here let's play the video, and then that was a beautiful thought by Zenkus, and we can end it on this. Let's see what this had to say. So, just in case anyone listening to this, what they said, the rise of gated communities corresponded directly with the rise of inequality in both America and the UK. That was said.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Thank you, madam. Pop the handbrake on for me, please.
Morning.
Good morning.
Where's Philip this morning?
Philip's not around anymore, I'm afraid, madam. Could I see your identification, please?
What sort of identification do you want?
I need to see your proof of residency, please, madam.
I've got my swipe card, but you've just seen me come out, so it's fairly obvious I live here.
Right, yes, that's not acceptable anymore, madam, I'm afraid. I need to see your proof of residency out here, please. Thank you.
I've just used this to come through the gates.
Yes, I saw that, madam. Again, as I said, that's not in doubt. Let me explain something to you. This is a gated community, yes. Here's the gate. You're looking to now come into a non-gated community, so unless you show me proof of residency for out here, I can't let you proceed.
This is the street, it's public property.
Madam, this is a non-gated community, yes? You don't want people in there, madam. Therefore, we don't want you out here. So unless you show me the relevant documentation, which I actually know you don't have, you won't be able to proceed any further, madam.
Come on, this is ridiculous. You just get out of the way. Can you just get out of the way and let me go?
No, could you back up for me, please? Could you just back up for me? No, madam, stop. You are trespassing.
Can you just get out of the way, please?
Now you have to stick with it. In there or out here,
I'm
madam.
just trying to go to
In
the
there
shops.
or out here.
Look, can you just get out of the way, please?
There's the gate. No. You're not going any further. No, madam. I will not let you go any further.
Can you just
we
get
don't
out
need
of the
barriers.
way,
We don't need
please?
gates. Tear the gates down. What are you afraid of, madam? We're not going to steal your stuff.
Look, do you want me
We
to
can
run you
all live
over?
together, madam. No, you're not going any further. I'm sorry. No.
To find out how inequality affects us all, we need to
That was a funny way to prove the point. That was a very funny way to prove the point. Go ahead.
I'll give Zenkus the last word. Any last commentary you want to give on that video?
Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah. Here's my comment on that video, on capitalism, on borders, on all of it. Tear the gates down.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't tear them down, storm them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So once again, I hope you guys follow the Revolutionary Blackout Network, because we're gonna have conversations and debates that a lot of people are too uncomfortable to have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm designed to do. We do everything from an anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist point of view. We're gonna black out the corporate media propaganda. That's why we got the name, right? And there are a lot of people who they just want to call it how they see it. I'm gonna straight up be honest with you guys. I am not a call it how I see it guy. I am unapologetically advocating for my community. That's the bias of this network. Mm-hmm. Fuck that calling it out as it is. Neutrality politics. Everyone know where I stand. I want a betterment of my community, which leads to the betterment of your community, which leads to the betterment of our quality of life. And that's the perspective of politics I will always bring. And that's what led me to my position on open borders. CJ, last word?
Yeah, I just wanted to say for those, these conversations are always going to seem like they're cut short because they're always great conversations. I know for some of us, I think I saw a comment, it may seem like we abruptly end, but when we look up, oh, wow, we're about to approach 2 hours, it's like, wow, it just flies by. So, Anthony, you're going to have an open invitation. I think Nick will be fine with his open invitation for future conversations. There's conversations we have with you, they just have to be in parts. There's 2 hours is not enough time.
And then there's stories we didn't get to. Like
exactly. Like it's just
close.
It's just not enough time. It's just not enough time for that. So, and for those who are joining us for our first show, thank you for joining us. First show, 8 p.m. Eastern on Mondays. I like these chats with Nick. I like bringing on a couple people here and there, just having these chats, and I call it having deeply serious conversations about deeply unserious people. That's the tagline for this new show, Nick and CJ show. Back to you, Nick.
Thank you guys for watching. We have International Leftist Coalition tomorrow. Should be a great show. We are temporarily demonetized as we transfer something over with this new network. So I humbly ask you guys, if you guys want to support us, And this actually go in general. Like in general, the best way to support us is support the individual content creators. Like donate to CJ if you like the work CJ does. Donate for Torah for the Poor if you want to support Rome. Donate for freedom fighters to Affinity. Like support us individually. So until we get monetized, that's the best best thing we can do. Support us via support us send journals, Cashapp, whatever you want to do. So thank you guys for watching. Hit subscribe. This is SocialistMMA, CJ Zenkus, Revolutionary Blackout Network. Sign out.
Yes, sir.